Welcome to Keeping Up with Our Community, a podcast for and about Romeo Community Schools. Each week, we will invite different guests to share insights about some unique aspects of our schools. This podcast is powered by the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. If you're looking to start a podcast for your business or personal use, look no further than MIT TV. Their in-studio podcast experience allows you to record perfect audio and capture amazing video. That's all right here at the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. Contact them now via email for a free consultation and schedule a visit at mit.tvpodcast@gmail.com. That's mitt.tvpodcast@gmail.com. Hello, my name is Marianne Brush, and I am the Communications and Marketing Supervisor for Romeo Community Schools. It is my pleasure to introduce episode 18 of the Keeping Up with Our Community Schools podcast. In this episode, we will have a conversation with our school resource officers, Officer Patrick Bauer, who is at Romeo Middle School, and Deputy Scott Labish, who is at Romeo High School. I will now turn it over to Superintendent Dr. Todd Robinson to serve as our host and lead the discussion.
Well, thank you, Marianne, for that introduction. And gentlemen, thanks for being here today. I've so appreciated our time together and the work that we've done. And we don't say it enough how much, as a school district, we appreciate having you guys on board and literally part of our staff and our family, as we call it. And I know you guys feel that way, so we're not going to get overly sappy because we're having a podcast with a couple of police officers. So let's be intentional. I think it'd be good to just piggyback on Marianne's introduction and just talk a little bit about your department, how long you've been with the department, and if there's any, positions or the roles that you've played prior to coming to Romeo. Let's just get a little bit more from each of you on your previous experience. So Scott, how about you start?
Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. I've been with the department for 21 years. November will be 22. I started out in the jail, actually working as a corrections officer in the jail for about 8 years. Then they pushed me out to I got out to the road. Went through the academy, got out to the road. Was on patrol for quite a few years. Went to evidence tech for a couple of years where you go collect the evidence, take the photos and everything. Went back to the road for a little bit, and then the school spot opened up and I applied for it and ended up getting it, which has been great so far.
Great. So that was probably like 15 years in the sheriff's department when you came here into the role?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Okay. All right. And the whole time with Macomb County Sheriff's Department?
Yes.
All right. And how about you, Patrick?
All right, so I'm going to start out with a little brag. I'm a Bulldog from 2005.
Yeah, whatever.
After graduating from Romeo High School, I went on to college and I got a degree. From there, I went to the Oakland Police Academy in 2008, and my first job was actually with the Village of Lake Orion Police Department. Starting there, I was, quote, part-time, end quote. Most weeks working full-time or more hours. Started getting a little experience. And then I got hired in Romeo in July of 2011. So I've been here for coming up on 13 years. So total in law enforcement, I got a little over 15, and it'll be 16 in September. So I've been involved with firearms instruction and different things throughout our department and try to go to advanced trainings. I get a lot of different things there. Never did the corrections thing, but I've always just been either a street cop until the last 2+ years. I've been mostly at Romeo Middle School.
Yeah. So maybe stepping back a little bit, we talk about trying to help our kids, learn through a lens of things they're interested in. Is there a specific time, Scott, that you remember that you knew or you began to believe that being in law enforcement was the right path for you?
I think it's always been a right path for me. I have an uncle who was a Warren police officer, cousin who was a Farmington Hills police officer. I have many police officers in my family.
Okay.
My brother's also working for our department, and it kind of just set in. That's what I was supposed to do. So I don't know else what I would be doing, in all honesty.
Cool.
I do see the fire guys. I think I might do that with the rear recliners and stuff like that. But I do like cooking dinner and hanging out. But I do love them. They're great guys. But this is definitely the path I don't know if there's anything else for me. So
cool. I'll have to tell Mary Ann equal time to the fire department. Must be a future podcast. And Patrick, how about you?
So the interesting part for me is when I was in high school, I actually thought I was going to be a teacher. And for whatever reason, that kind of went away. I always wanted to be a part of a community and be able to help people in some way, shape, or form. And right at the end of my senior year, I decided that maybe I wanted to be a firefighter, paramedic. And my dad actually said, "You should be a cop." And I was like, "Really?" And I kind of thought about it, and I took some classes, and I fell in love with it. I had a couple of guys that are probably now retired from their jobs for my first teachers in law enforcement, and they were the type of people that you could tell did the job for the right reasons and wanted to be involved in communities, and just made me kind of realize that maybe I did want to be a cop. And so it wasn't my initial plan, and now it's kind of cool that, you know, doing the SRO gig every once in a while, I do get to kind of do that teacher role too, and I do like it a lot. So I kind of wonder at times if maybe that was my path, but I'm pretty certain that I'm in the right field.
Yeah. So let's double down on that. When, you know, in your time in the Romeo PD department, did you begin to think about this whole school resource officer thing?
So it was actually kind of brought up to me by some administrators within your school district. And I working at Romeo, I've had the unique experience. I've worked some on nights. I've worked some in afternoons. Our one afternoon shift is more like a midnight shift. But I also had the opportunity, I worked some day shifts even early in my career there. And I remember the old middle school on Prospect Street, I would get called to go over there maybe if Deputy Labish wasn't available or before Deputy Labish was in his role, and got to work with the administrators up there. And between their encouragement and some other people affiliated with the school district and my chief of police at the time, they gave me the support and the encouragement to give it a shot. And I couldn't be happier at it. It's been the funnest job of my career.
Yeah. How about you, Scott? You've had a couple different assignments in the sheriff's department, and when did the thought of being an SRO jump onto your radar?
I really don't know. That long time ago, they used to have a thing called the Youth Bureau. It was all detectives, and they all were in there. They just did all juvenile stuff. And most cops don't want anything to do with juvenile stuff because you have to talk to parents, you have to talk to this person. It's a lot of hoops to jump through, a little extra paperwork. And I don't know, just for some reason appealed to me. So when we started adding more spots and the spot popped up, I thought it'd be interesting to do. I started talking to the guy that was doing it in our department. There's a couple of them, and they're really only in, I want to say, Dakota at the time. And then this spot popped up. I talked to him. He kind of told me what it was about, what you do, what's going on. And I like the idea of it because you get to do more community policing, which is going around talking to people, doing things. I'm just kind of social as it is. I can say I don't think I've ever really been like this super go-getter ticket writer where I was just writing tickets constantly. Traffic just wasn't my thing. But going into places and talking to people, like when I was on patrol, I'd stop to talk to store owners. I'd stop to talk to people, just chit-chat with them, and that just kind of fit into this whole thing where I'm walking the hallways talking to kids and stuff. So and teachers.
Yeah. So let me digress a bit and just ask a question. There is specific training that you guys have both had the opportunity to go through in terms of, you know, becoming a school resource officer, you know, not necessarily maybe as formally required as some other things that we talk about in education, but talk a little bit about some of the specific training you've had to prepare you for the role you're in, or even since you've been in the role.
You want to answer that one?
Yeah, I'll start first. So when the idea was brought up to me, I knew I was going to have to go and get some kind of certification to make sure that I knew the laws that are specific to working in the schools and how some of the laws change if you're considered part of administration being a full-time SRO. And so I went through a program with NASRO to be nationally certified as a school resource officer. So that was a week-long training, and it was mostly on the laws, learning about FERPA rights for students and all the other alphabet abbreviations we can use. And it was really cool too. They pushed you to make some presentations and do presentations in front of, a room with 30 cops. And And some people know that cops can be they can be a little hard on each other with jokes, but it was really good. It was a good experience, and I really felt like when I went through that class and watching the instructor and seeing how emotional he got with some of those connections he built with kids and stories he told, and I was like, I remember leaving that class going, I think this is going to be really cool.
Yeah.
And since then, I've worked on doing some virtual trainings that the state's recently put onto the Michigan Virtual Academy. I think some school teachers use that for some of their continuing education, and so I've completed that program that's on there. I've also gone to a lot of school safety and some presentations on either active shooter things, or actually I did go to one class within the last year where it was an expert that he's dedicated his retirement after law enforcement to just becoming an expert on active shooters and traits depending on the age of kids. And so I try to stay up with as much training as I can and go to those types of classes.
Scott, you want to add to that?
I've done all the same classes as him. He just answers better than me, so I just let him go for it.
Yeah. Did the sheriff's department, were they reaching out to deputies to say, hey, there's so many slots to go get this training, so you're ready to become an SRO?
Well, you put in for it. They're not
Okay.
going to send you to a training that you're not going to have anything to do with.
Okay.
So I won't go to like a undercover training or something. But
Yeah.
once you get the spot, then they will send you stuff, or we have a training folder. You can find it and go to the training. So I've done the
Yeah.
Nazareth one and all that stuff too. And then we'll get interviewing classes and stuff like that to learn how to interview. I had a body language class that was absolutely amazing. Just talks about how different postures and different movements can mean stuff. And once you have that class and start talking to somebody, you can really see it. So it's actually pretty cool.
Yeah. Fun fact I'll throw into the podcast is you weren't the initial choice to be the SRO at Romeo High School. This was literally right after I became the superintendent, that process. I remember getting reached out to, by Sheriff Wickersham, and they were going to move forward with some interviews, and it was a pooled situation because I think there was a couple districts looking, and we had a couple administrators and district and building, a part of the process. And I'm not good on names that long ago, but let's just say the person that initially got chosen got some cold feet pretty early on in August, and like that's fate for me. I'm grateful that we got the right person, and you've been here since.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. I'm glad they got cold feet because I like this stuff.
So maybe a couple thoughts on what is the most rewarding part of your work as a school resource officer here in Romeo?
I do the high school, the 9th grade, and I bounce into elementary schools as much as I can. Elementary schools are interesting because it's like I go into the March's Reading Month, I go read to kids, and it's such a different span from them when I'll read, I'll say, anyone have any questions, and they're like, I ate spaghetti last night. I'm like, great, white or red sauce?
Yeah.
Like, what'd you have? And so, but then the high school, I love, I actually get to go into classes and do presentations and talk to kids who are becoming on their way to becoming adults, and I actually get to speak to them more on a personal level. I think that's great because sometimes this is their first interaction with a police officer. Sometimes they've had bad interactions with police officers because of situations outside of school, and reaching all those kids and just talking to them like a normal human being, not talking down to them. I do love going into the classrooms, but I'm not a teacher. Nothing against, I know you said you love going in and get that role still. I'm not a teacher, so I talk to them just a little differently, and it's more direct on. I'm like, well, this is what it is. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. Yeah. And that's the kind of relationships I built, and just talking to kids about stuff, and it's been great. Yeah. That's my favorite part, honestly.
How about you, Pedro?
I think it's obviously the best part of the job is building the relationships with the kids. Being that pillar, that support that they can lean on when they're having a bad day, and trying to get to know the kids, especially the kids that school is their safe space. When you get to know them and you support them, and there's one in particular I can think of, when he has a bad day, I get a hug. Yeah. And knowing that you can be someone that they can go to, knowing that you do everything that you can to make sure they're safe there, and they're open enough with you to tell you if there's things going on at home. Unfortunately, sometimes, we fill that role of being a counselor. We fill that role of being a mandatory reporter, and we might hear things are not perfect at home. And they might raise those flags. And it's hard because in no way, shape, or form do I look at my school resource officer role. The last thing I really want to do is law enforcement, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I will do that, but the biggest thing I want to do is support the kids. And like Deputy Labish said, the one thing for sure is maybe me, maybe him. That's going to be the first time they interact with law enforcement. Maybe not, but if it is, I want to be that person that even if they're, I've had kids that are standoffish. My parents say I'm not supposed to talk to you. That's okay. That's great. I'm still going to say hello to you every morning. And if you ever change your mind, great. And I had a kid that about 3-4 weeks later, he's coming up asking me questions. And I'm like, I don't want your parents getting mad. I'll gladly talk to you. And he's like, well, I really just want to talk to you. And just being able to build those relationships is priceless. It's the most rewarding thing I've had for sure.
Yeah. Perception is, unfortunately reality now more than ever in a divided world. And, I think in large part, our part of the county, state, region, whatever we want to talk is truly supportive of law enforcement, but there's still that initial connection that I would agree. You guys are sometimes the first personable, interaction they actually have with the law enforcement officer, and that helps. I think that helps. It kind of, I think, Scott, lends to that community policing concept.
Yeah.
And when we need information on difficult situations, I see the value of your guys' relationships allowing us to maybe in a faster manner, in a more efficient manner, get to the bottom of things, because our kids trust you guys. So
That's awesome. Thank you.
So school safety is always priority one, as it should be in our district, and I think every district. I feel the need to just kind of say, it's priority number one. It will be priority number one for us. But let's talk about how that's changed maybe in recent years. Just a few thoughts.
Just with the stuff that happened in Oxford and just stuff that goes around, I mean, you always have that thing going on of what could happen. Is it a school, someone who bring a gun to school? Is it a school shooter? I mean, with the internet, the social media, people just saying they're gonna come shoot up a school or do something. It's a serious issue. Over the past, I don't even know how many years this has been going on. I know in the 90s when I was in school, this wasn't really an issue. I mean, we went out to lunch and left to go to Taco Bell or whatever and came back. Now there's closed campuses, and for safety reasons, obviously, I totally agree with it. So things have changed in that retrospect, that we do take everything way more serious. It's not just a conversation with a principal, or I don't even know if it ever was, but we definitely both take it seriously when something like that happens, and it's got to be investigated properly. And we go to houses, talk to parents, talk to kids, really dig into it, not just like, that's Billy, he's joking around. We don't, it's no big deal. Yeah. So what do you think?
I think, obviously the safety aspect and what I've seen going on in the district, tremendous effort put in by the district-wide with our team. So for the people listening, everyone sitting here on this podcast right now, we're part of the district safety team, and we meet monthly to try and find any little thing we can to improve to keep kids safer. That's our goal, and we've all worked really hard at it. And I see the progress that's been made in my time of being here, and I'm very impressed. I go to meetings in the county. I just had training actually today in a different county, and we're on par, if not exceeding, every other place that I hear about. So I know that, if it's coming from the safety standpoints of our, our secure entrances, or if it's talking about how we're training staff, it's we're always working, and I feel that we're never going to be done. There's always going to be something to improve upon, but we're definitely giving it 100%. It's not something that's taken lightly.
So he kind of opened the door, Scott Patrick did, to this whole notion of safety as a priority, and we know the urgency of that and the anxiety around that and the, the fear is, as high as it's ever been. Talk about school safety in Romeo Community Schools and kind of where you think we're at.
I think we're good talking to other places and seeing what's going on. And me and him, we constantly are looking into that stuff. We're not just like, not only doing it when the school safety committee comes. We read debriefs. He went to a training today where there's a debrief and debrief. I'm saying the word wrong, I thought maybe, but in terms of school safety, I mean, the stuff we think about and talk about, people don't realize. I mean, I can't even count how many meetings about door locks we had, just about the ease of what's best, a push button, a turn. And we came up with that. Now all the doors have locks, which is the easiest thing anyone can do. Just turn it. So I mean, just stuff like that comes up. I think Romeo schools are pretty safe. The administration, me and Officer Bauer here, work well with the administration. I know the middle school administration before he started. I was up in the middle schools too, and I got to know them. And I thought the first thing to do is get friendly with them. He did the same thing, is just befriend them basically, because we can all be on the same side. As soon as something's going on with a kid, the counselors are involved, the principals are involved. If the kid trusts a teacher, the teacher's involved, we're involved. Yeah. And we just try to make sure to catch things before they even start. I think we've done pretty good about that. What do you think?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, middle school wise, or I've gone to elementary schools for issues and stuff.
Yes.
And the support that we receive from the district, and it's a shout out to all the administrators, counselors, social workers, the secretaries that step into those roles when somebody might not be in the building because they're sick or at training. That makes our job so much easier, to be on the same page and for them to know and for them to trust us that the kid's best interest is what we're worried about.
Yes.
We're not worried about the law enforcement or the possible, if there's a ticket or a criminal charge. Like, that's the last thing we want to do. Our biggest thing is knowing that we have support from those administrators and those counselors and social workers and secretaries and teachers, that they know they can come to us and they can say, hey, this is what's going on. Do you think you need to be involved? We think you should be. They're always including us, and sometimes they'll come to us and just go, hey, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
And it's nice to be included even on those non-law enforcement things.
Yes.
Because I want to know what kids are going through at school. I want to know what is going on at their house maybe that's upsetting them, or within their relationships, and be somebody that they know cares and understands that, I want kids to feel that they know they can come to myself or Deputy Labish or any adult they trust in the building when they're having a problem, and really focus in on when they're struggling.
Yeah. It's interesting. You mentioned counselors and social workers. I think of like the traditional DARE education and that, and school resource officers and community policing officers are teachers. They're called upon to provide some level of instruction at times. I just think of the work we've done in the district and, over the past 4 or 5 years, and, what we're doing at the county level and what's being required at the state level. And naturally maybe directly connected to the tragedy in Oxford in many ways, like your connection with the mental health side of school safety.
Yes.
We talk about infrastructure and secured entry and locks and cameras and things like that, but there's this human element of it that seems to have really become a big part of your work, and you've had to join on. Talk a little bit about that. Yeah.
Well, I did all the threat assessment training. Actually, I think I'm a trainer. I am a trainer. I don't think I am a trainer. I had to think for a minute. Do all the threat assessments, talking with administrators after that, but just the getting insight about kids from social workers, counselors, principals, teachers that know them, collecting all that data together, and then compiling what is going on, what's actually going on. Like you said, the kid has a bad day, gives you a hug, that might be a signal. Right. Or he's having a bad day, what's going on with him? Do we need to intervene? Do we need to get a counselor? Do we need to look into this further? Just building those relationships are huge. I don't know.
I think it's huge too that the school district, from day one of behavioral threat assessments, you guys have not only invited us to be in part, but encouraged us to be a part of that. And I don't hear that in every district. And I think it's so important. The roles that Deputy Labish and I are in, we're constantly communicating with each other, and we might get involved in a threat assessment, and it might be someone that's living in his jurisdiction. I can call him, and we have that relationship where,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
hey, have you been to this home? What can you tell me about it? So not only do we have the value of being able to add in if there's that law enforcement interaction within the community that I patrol the Village of Romeo, but then Deputy Labish is in Washington Township and has the jurisdiction to go into Bruce Township as well, and we can kind of cover all our bases and check all of our databases to share information with each other and or counselors or social workers if it's necessary to be helping that struggling student as much as possible and to keep our schools and our community safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, we work together a lot in that retrospect. If something's going, I think we went to a house in Washington together the other day.
Yep.
And
weeks
there's no like TV, you're in my jurisdiction, in my area, get out of here thing.
Yeah.
We both share everything, and whatever happens, wherever this goes.
I feel like it's super easy to support each other like that. We have the
100%.
same goals.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's never been a doubt what the goals are. It's all about the kids.
Yeah, and I think for us, having you guys in our district gives us a more direct and efficient connection to law enforcement on a larger scale. Even with the state police department and Oakland County Sheriff's Department,
Yeah.
like Scott, I'm laughing kind of a little bit because you said like not every sheriff's deputy wants to be an SRO, like in the juvenile type work.
Yeah,
but they're quick. I know at all hours they're
Yeah.
quick to hand things back to you. So you have colleagues in your departments that are happy
Yeah.
to say, "Oh, we caught this kid doing this. They got an SRO. Let's call Labish and turn this hooligan over to him."
I'm perfectly fine with doing
Yeah.
that because I see these kids. This is almost my community, my kids, my stuff.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do that stuff because I may know the kid at a completely different level at school. He's whatever, and maybe he's a good kid. He just made a mistake. It's no big deal. People make mistakes, and I know them. I know the family from being here. So
Yeah. Well, our parents are certainly appreciative, I think, at large for what you bring to our schools. If you could speak directly to the parents of students, maybe even specific to the level that you work at in the district, like, what's something that you would want to tell them, because we have this forum that this might be the opportunity for them to hear that. So we talk about middle school, Patrick, like, what's a message you would really want parents to know?
So I feel at that age, I feel like the kids there at school, they're falling on one side or the other. They're still wanting to be a kid, or they're trying to be an adult. And it's like that. It's that transition point where I think it's super important for parents to be talking with their kids. And unfortunately, with social media, that is I guess exposed kids to more adult things at a younger age. That's just my opinion. Might be wrong to some people, but I feel like those types of things encourage at times, kids to be dressing a certain way or doing certain things or jokes that can be harmful. And, and obviously too, unfortunately, some at the middle school, it's probably more common at the high school. We fall into the vaping and the alternate forms of nicotine. And, now with recreational marijuana, we're running into more, vaping of that or edibles and stuff. And I'm sure Deputy Labish can touch on that a little more, but, there's a lot of things. I think one of the biggest things is parents just got to talk to their kids, and you're paying the phone bill. Don't be afraid to ask your kid to look at that phone. And if they won't let you, that's what we call a clue in law enforcement.
Yeah.
If they're ready to fight and go crazy over you trying to look at their phone, there's something on there they don't want you to see. And it's a hard position for parents, but you gotta protect your kids. You gotta be worried about your kids and worried about what's on that device.
Yeah.
wow, I could not say that better. It's you pay the phone bill, not them. So look through their phone. You got to be diligent. Just look through stuff. Snapchat, Instagram. Number one, Snapchat does not go away. They hold all that information. So what you think is gone is in a database the size of a warehouse in California. So
And the hardest part too is some of these social media accounts. I know Deputy Labish definitely has, and I know I have done investigations where we try to retrieve some of that information on social media. The problem is if it's owned by a corporation outside of the United States, we might not get a response back, even if we've gone through the efforts of getting a search warrant from a judge. And like he said, that information is somewhere.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, if they're not willing to work with law enforcement when there's a serious crime, they may or may not be using that information for immoral things.
Yeah.
These phones are
Oh yeah, that social media is I get social media was developed to keep in touch with people like in California from Michigan or East Coast, West Coast, whatever, or around the world. It's great, but also the dangers of it too are just through the roof. Like, kids and parents, if you meet someone on social media and all of a sudden they're your boyfriend or girlfriend, you haven't physically met them, they're not your boyfriend or girlfriend.
Yeah.
That is that's driving me nuts.
So I think one of the huge things too, when you start to touch on social media, it's just, when I was in school, back in the, 90s and early 2000s, there could be issues with a kid at school, right? They weren't going to call your parents' landline to give you a hard time. If there was going to be anything, it was going to be some silly prank call or something. And they weren't going to call and threaten you over the phone knowing that your parents could listen in on the other line.
Yeah.
Kids now have 24/7 access to, they can be picking on other kids or they can be doing those things, and kids never get a break. So, I've had some parents come to me and they go, I have rules. If we do certain things on the weekend or the certain time at night, that phone comes with me and it's off. And I think that's great because it gives those kids a little bit of a break. These Snapchats and stuff now, they'll just add a kid to a group message and make fun of them. And next thing you know, if you've used it too many times, it's gone. And then these kids are struggling with that and they can't really get away from it. So if you look at a 7-8 hour day at school, if a kid's having an issue, not that they should have to deal with it daily, but there's only so many hours they could have dealt with it back in the day. Now it's 24/7 every day.
Yeah, your house should be a safe place, not a place to get bullied at digitally. I totally agree with you on that. That's insane.
Anything else, Scott, from that high school level? I know we talked about the phones and the social media.
Just, the phones, the social media, you just got to watch that stuff.
How about any messages to the drivers?
Talk about the 2 accidents I had in the parking lot today.
I heard.
Slow down, be patient. You all are licensed drivers, so you're all responsible for your vehicles, and just slow down. To race out of the parking lot and try to be the first out, or you got to get somewhere, you got to go somewhere, just slow down. If you would wait 10, 15 minutes, you could probably walk to your car, get in and drive right out.
Yeah.
Just slow down. You don't need to run to your car. You don't need to be urgency to get out of school. And I get it. It's almost the end of the year. I think some of the teachers might be part of that, running to their cars to get out.
Yeah. What else for kids?
The vape, the new thing now, parents, if you're listening, Zins, it's smokeless tobacco. It's a pouch that is like an old tobacco pouch, but you don't have to spit. You like tobacco, you spit, you just put it in. It's nicotine. It's peppermint, wintergreen. And
it's kind of like a little like a if you remember like the 3-dimensional Trident gum pieces, it almost kind of looks just like that.
Yeah.
Except it's like a
a
clearish pouch.
Yeah.
And then there's just a nicotine powder or material or whatever in it.
And you don't have to spit. There's no smoke being produced from it. We're finding that because kids I flat out asked the kids, like, what draws you to this? Like, well, I can't vape in class. I'm doing this to stop from vaping. But now you're just moving from one nicotine to another. It's not.
And certainly
not
not solving any form of addiction.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And we're constantly fighting this battle. If you see little pouches, and kids are smart, they're hiding them in things so they can get away with it. Mm-hmm. So it's moving. So there's still vaping. It's moving from vape to these Zins and just other forms. So just watch what your kid's doing, because they could tell you it's not. I mean, I had one parent say, well, they told me it wasn't. I'm like, well, if you read the package, it says nicotine right on, giant warning.
Yeah.
So yeah, that the vape, the nicotine, you mentioned the THC, all that stuff is just, they made the law and they didn't think of other things when they, like all these
accessibility
problems.
is there.
So I'll take
accessible.
a second here to say something to the parents too. Like if you find something in your kid's room that you don't know what it is, go on our school district website, and I'm underneath the middle school, Officer Bauer. Deputy Labish is underneath
Oh yeah,
the
bring
high
it.
school.
Show us. Bring it to us. We'll talk.
Send us a picture to that email. Like, we will more than happy tell you if we have an idea. If we don't have an idea, then we'll try to, figure it out together and try to keep the kids safe.
Between the two of us, we've seen pretty much everything. So.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the parameters of the job in full. Like, school resource officers don't get the full summer off, and
No.
there's times where we're on break for a few weeks. So talk about the balance of, you work full time for your agencies. What's the other time?
The other time I get to go, and I know you do too, we get to go back to the road and actually push a patrol car, work calls, accidents, anything that really would go on in a normal police day. We're extra on the road that day within Washington and Romeo. So we get to go back to basically our roots, back to patrol.
Yeah.
Back to the nuts and bolts of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice.
It's at times it's kind of nice too. And then normally shortly into the summer, if you deal with an adult that you've dealt with a bunch of times and they can't seem to learn, I think to myself, how come the 11 to 14-year-olds that I deal with, they actually can learn? But no, I do love working the road. I've always liked working the road, and I like doing community policing. I have no issues doing traffic. I'm always doing something. So that's a good part about going back to the road. I try to do as much training as I can in the summer too.
Sure.
Yes.
Obviously, the last thing I really want to do is be out of the school building during the school year. But certain things come up. There's important meetings and important work that needs to be done, or there's, some trainings that I'm like, wow, this is going to be really valuable. I know I'm going to learn something because I know someone else who's done it, or I know the person that maybe is putting it on has a ton of knowledge in a specific topic that's specific to the school. So the summer's kind of nice. You do get to go back to the road, and you get to kind of knock the rust off of pushing a patrol car around that you don't do all the time. And I know Deputy Labish does too. We still work overtime shifts every once in a while in evenings or on weekends when school's going on. But it's a nice change of pace. But I'm always glad when Bulldog days are around the corner to get back into the swing of the school year.
Well, when I'm standing in an intersection, it's 100 degrees directing traffic. I'm thinking, man, there's an air conditioning building about 2 miles that way.
Yep.
I can go. I'd rather be in right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think our time is probably coming to a close. Final thought from either of you?
Oh, thanks. This was great. Thank you for having us. We do love our job, and both of us do. I know that.
Yeah.
Romeo Schools, I do believe 100% in. And I wasn't a bulldog like somebody else sitting next to me. I didn't get to throw that brag out. But I do believe in this community so much that me and my wife decided to bring our kids over to Romeo Schools and are very, very happy with their education right now. And I feel 100% safe with them. I have no question about anything.
Thank you.
Bring them here.
Yeah, just thank you for having me on the podcast. Thank you for believing in us and supporting us in the role that we do with the school. And I guess my final thought or my final message to any kid that might listen to this or any parent that might listen to this, like, be kids. Don't try and grow up too fast. Don't try and do all the things that, the cool kids are doing this. Sit down and talk with your parents and talk with your kids about how some of these serious adult things they're doing, how it can affect their lives, and encourage them to talk to whoever that trusted adult is at the school too, because they're going to struggle with it. But it's always so refreshing when I see a kid that's focused on school and they change that friend group because they know that friend group is maybe not doing all the right things, and they want to focus on grades, and they want to be a kid, and they want to make their parents proud. That's really cool to see.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, gentlemen. You guys are a vital part of the team, and
Thank you.
And we appreciate your support. I guess with the badge and of course all the things that you do outside. So we're appreciative of the municipalities and the agencies to partner to bring you to our school district, and we'll continue to fight the fight.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Robinson.
And I would like to thank our hosts, Dr. Robinson and Officer Bauer and Deputy Labish, for helping our community gain a better understanding of the important role our school resource officers play in our schools. Up next, we will hear from our Teachers of the Year, John Phillips, Amanda Mazzio, and Krista Miller, who will share their perspective on what makes excellence in teaching. Thank you for joining us, and tune in next week to keep up with Romeo Community Schools. This podcast is powered by the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. If you're looking to start a podcast for your business or personal use, look no further than MIT TV. Their in-studio podcast experience allows you to record perfect audio and capture amazing video. That's all right here at the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. Contact them now via email for a free consultation and schedule a visit at mit.tvpodcast@gmail.com. That's mitt.tvpodcast@gmail.com.